Well, unless you've been living under a rock the last year, then you'll probably know that Spider-Man No Way Home is out this week. Might be a bit later depending on where you are in the world. It's Wednesday here in the UK. I know it's Thursday most of North America, but I think it's actually a week later in Australia. If you are having to wait quite a while on that, let me know, because I'd like to hear how you avoid the spoilers. But before we get Spider-Man No Way Home, I'm going to do a rumour roundup. Now, if you don't want any spoilers, then this is your warning. These are all rumours, and some of them are pretty common sense, but some of them are a little bit wild, but we never know what's going to show up. So I want to talk about the giant spider in the room, and as always, I'm Al. This is the Geek in Review, so let's get to it. Internet is going mental for this film. We've had so many leaks, so many spoilers, so many theories, and I thought I would collate a few of the best, or at least some of my favourite ones, into a little video. And again, I've got no idea if any of these are true or not, so spoiler alert again, because it could show up in the film. So the first one is Doc Ock is a good guy. Now, I know he's supposed to be the villain in the film, but think about this. Where did we leave him at the end of Spider-Man 2? He had the realisation of what he'd done and who he actually was, and he killed himself to help save Manhattan, Peter Parker and Mary Jane. So it does kind of make sense. From the trailers, we do see him talking to Peter, and it seems as if he's trying to help fill in the blanks for Holland's Spider-Man. And if you also look at the trailer as well, he's missing from that big fight at the end. So you see Sandman, Lizard and Electro, but you don't see Doc Ock. Now in another scene in the trailer you do see him scaling the scaffolding, but it looks as if he's sort of behind or on Spider-Man's side. And then there's a scene as well where he's in the prison and they're having a little chat and that joke about his name. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Doc Ock is going to end up helping Spider-Man and maybe even dying to help him as well. Because Marvel loved giving us those old familiar story beats, and that would be one that we're definitely used to. Another one is we're going to be getting a Hobgoblin or another Green Goblin, so that's not Norman Osborn, that's potentially Ned turning into the Hobgoblin or James Franco showing back up. Now I don't think James Franco's going to show back up for a lot of reasons, just Google it, I'm not going to talk about it. And I do think we are going to get a little bit more from Ned in this film, but I don't think he's going to go full evil on that. But one thing that leads me to believe that we might see another Green Goblin or Hobgoblin is there is a very quick scene with Aunt May running, and she is holding what appears to be the Green Goblin serum. Now recently I did rewatch Spider-Man 1, and while the containers for the serum in that film are a lot bigger, the ones she's holding are around about a sort of standard test tube size, whereas in the film they're like huge fluorescent light bulb size. It does seem to be the same thing, but it does raise a lot of questions as where is she getting it from? Is it the Super Soldier serum? Because I'm pretty sure that was a different colour. It might not be the Green Goblin serum. Are we going to see Osborn Industries or Norman Osborn's company show up in the main MCU? I highly doubt it. But it does raise a few questions, and I'll get to Aunt May in a second as well. Now, one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is we know that, well, we pretty much know that we're going to get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back, but how is Tom Holland going to interact with them? There's no doubt going to be a large fight scene at the end, but I can't really see that's how they're going to meet. I think Tom Holland is going to run into them somewhere across the multiverse where he's either chasing or being chased by Doctor Strange. But another thing that occurred to me is, and again, not a lot of people are talking about this, what if Tom Holland's Spider-Man shows up in previous Spider-Man films, a bit like the way they done it in Endgame when they went back to New York in 2012 and Captain America had to fight himself and all that stuff. Now, I would like to see this, but given that the original Spider-Man films were mostly done through Sony, I highly doubt they're going to do this, plus the fact that the footage, I don't think it would really work with the MCU, but it is something I'd like to see. And I've said that before in previous videos, I would really like to see Tom Holland's Peter Parker interact with like Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane, or one of these characters along the way, or maybe even an Uncle Ben, because Martin Sheen is still alive, and remember he was Uncle Ben in the Amazing Spider-Man films. So it's definitely something to think about. Now, my next one, Doctor Strange or Peter Parker don't cause the multiverse event that unleashes all these villains. Now, the multiverse was first introduced to us in the last episode of Loki, and we've seen reality splitting there. Now, if you do look at the scenes that we've seen from the trailer on top of the Statue of Liberty or on top of the Captain America statue, whatever you want to call it, the light that is cracking the sky looks very similar in colour and design to the light that was going on outside of that, Kang or Immortus's castle or fortress when the multiverse was all coming apart and everything was going mental while Owen Wilson was watching the screens at the TVA. So maybe it is just a coincidence that Peter asked Strange to perform this spell at the same time, but also that line that Strange says about they're all coming through and he can't stop it. This makes me think that there's something more going on here that we're not seeing. So maybe it is just a coincidence. Maybe Loki is going to show up. I'm 50-50 on that one, if I'm being honest. I think he's going to show up more in the Multiverse of Madness than he ever will here. I think these events could be linked to what happened in the last episode of Loki, but to what degree, it's hard to tell. And speaking of Doctor Strange, Strange is strange. Now, from the very first trailer that's come out, a lot of people noticed that Doctor Strange's hair looked very much like a dodgy wig. Plus, he was dressed in sort of a hoodie and tracksuit or jogging pants, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of people didn't know what to make about this at the time, but the rumours are that this is Strange Supreme from the What If series that came out a few months ago when Doctor Strange basically tried to reset all of reality to save Irene and it didn't work. Now, I don't think this one is necessarily true, but there is something definitely up with Doctor Strange in these clips. It just doesn't seem right. I can't really put my finger on it. But are we going to get another sort of variant or alternative Doctor Strange? If we're getting other Spider-Men showing up, then yeah, it's a pretty good guess that we might get some other version of Strange along the way. Now, we all know pretty much what villains are back. We've got the Green Goblin, Electro, Lizard, Sandman, and then maybe one other of the Sinister Six or maybe Venom. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but if you notice, one of the rumours that's been going about for quite a while, I think the first time I heard this rumour was the end of last year, about maybe November, December last year, is that some of the villains, if not all of them, are going to get their hands on Stark tech. Now, the trailer pretty much already supports this. We've seen Electro with an arc reactor strapped to his chest. We've also seen what appears to be Doc Ock absorbing the Iron Spider suit. So maybe they steal it. And we've seen Avenger stuff show up recently as well in the Hawkeye show when it's getting auctioned off, so we know there is a market for it. But how did they get it and who's selling it? Well, one of the theories is that it's Sharon Carter from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, so as she's now the power broker. And yeah, I don't know about this. It probably will be Sharon Carter, but I'd love to see Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2 show back up and sort of maybe get his revenge and maybe try and pilfer some Stark tech and get it into the wrong hands. We know that we're getting the Armour Wars show, and we know that Riri Williams is going to play a big role in Black Panther, and if you didn't know that, you know it now. So Stark Tech, I think, is going to play a bit of a legacy thing in this, and I don't think that we're done with Stark Tech in the MCU just because Tony Stark himself is gone. Now, one of the big ones is that Daredevil is back. This has been going on for quite a while. There has been pictures out there, if you've seen it. Whether they're real or not, I kind of think that they are. Kevin Feige said in the last week or so that when Daredevil does come back, it is going to be Charlie Cox. So, yeah, I think that one is pretty likely. Now, this is the big one. There is going to be deaths. Now, I've said this in previous Spider-Man videos, is that one of the things that Tom Holland's Spider-Man hasn't dealt with that the previous two have is the death of Uncle Ben or any sort of loss. Before you say it, Tony Stark doesn't count. So the rumours on this one go anywhere from MJ to Aunt May to Ned, and they might be all for the chop. But I think moving forward with the Holland films, it might not be MJ that gets the chop. I think it'll probably be Aunt May. Again, we haven't seen this Peter suffer a loss, so I do think that if something happens and he does lose the last remaining member of his family on this, it's going to be a heavy burden to carry forward. And it could set up quite a nice new darker Spider-Man trilogy. And going back to the villains, we're missing a sixth member of the Sinister Six. So we've got Sandman, Green Goblin, Dr. Ock, Electro and the Lizard, so that's 5. Who's missing? These rumours go anywhere from Paul Giamatti's Rhino to Michael Keaton's Vulture to Tom Hardy's Venom and maybe even Jared Leto's Mobius. But I don't know about this one. I don't know if we're going to get a 6th member of the Sinister Six. I think some of these people might show up or might get casually mentioned. I do think that Morbius is going to play more of a key role in the MCU with regards to the sort of magic or dark side of it. If you know anything about the comics, you know where I'm going to go with that, along with Blade and Spider-Man and even the 90s cartoon as well. But I don't think he's going to show up on this. I think we're more likely that it's going to be Michael Keaton's Vulture. But speaking of Venom, so we know that he's sort of in the MCU, and we know from Venom 2 that symbiotes can exist across the multiverse, so will they meet? I doubt it. I can see Venom and Spider-Man interacting, but I cannot see Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Tom Holland's Peter Parker working. Now, what I think is going to happen is that Venom is going to get pulled back into his own universe at some point, but a little bit of the Venom symbiote will be left behind, so that gives an opportunity for Spider-Man to get the black suit that we've seen previously in Spider-Man 3, but not turn into a total emo dancing jazz dickhead that takes his new girlfriend to his old girlfriend's place of work just to be a dick. Also, the rumour is that if Venom does show up, he's going to be sporting the Spider-Man symbol on his chest. We've not seen that. In fact, I don't remember if it was Iron Man 3, but it's definitely not been in the last 2 Venom films. I think we might get a nod to Venom in this, but I think if Spider-Man meets Venom, it's going to be a much bigger event and they're never going to have time to pack it into this film. Plus, Eddie Brock is too smart to end up as a villain. He's gone out his way to avoid this in the movies, and I can't see him and Spidey teaming up either. So in terms of that, I say that's probably about a 4 out of 10. But the last one is probably the craziest rumour of all, and I'll go heads out before I even say it, is I don't believe this. But there are a few people online who believe it, so hey man, that's cool. Is that none of what we're seeing in the trailers in the film is real, and that Mysterio from the last Spider-Man film, Jake Gyllenhaal, is behind it all. Yeah, I don't think that one's very likely. I think we might get Mysterio back at some point, but not in this film. Now, there are loads of other Spider-Man rumours out there. I'm not really going to discuss it. These are just some of my favourites. And I'm recording this on Tuesday morning before I've seen Spider-Man. I've got my ticket booked on Wednesday. So if I'm right, hey, that's great. And if I'm not, that's great as well. But let me know some of your theories, because I want to hear what you guys think below. You can reach out to me in the comments, or you can follow me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. My name's Al. As always, thanks for watching. And if you are going to post in the comments or Twitter, please post spoilers in capital letters first, so people who haven't seen the film won't get anything ruined. I really hope you all get a chance to go and see this on the big screen, no matter where you are. And I hope you're all taking care of yourself as always. Thanks for watching.